bienvenido ahí. Es okay. Una nueva experiencia, yo le llamo una experiencia, un nuevo juego para mi canal. Y comencemos.
Dear Esther, I sometimes feel as if I've given birth to this island. Somewhere between the longitude and latitude, a split opened up, and it beached remotely here. No matter how hard I correlate, it remains a singularity, an alpha point in my life that refuses all hypothesis. I return each time leaving fresh markers that I hope, in the full glare of my hopelessness, will have blossomed into fresh insight in the interim.
Aquí lo único que hay es de tal, mirar, no puedo bregar con nada, no me deja bregar con nada, solamente veo el libro aquí. Lo mejor que tiene este juego son las cuevas brutales. A veces hay pequeños fantasmas aquí, ahora no se ven.
Por esta ventanilla, si no habéis visto echar para atrás, escuchad también un pequeño ruido. Bueno, este lado ya lo he visto. Tampoco no tenía nada más que disfrutar del paisaje y investigar hasta que nos salte la ronda. Aquí normalmente se quedamos para arriba. ¿Habéis visto? El segundo pantano.
Sí, se ve que no mucho más. Por favor, si les gusta este juego, pongan un like, y así ayuda mucho al canal. Una de las cosas en este juego que aquí uno no se puede morir, si
Donnelly reported the legend of the
matarte,
hermit,
no te va a
a holy
matar,
man who sought solitude in its most pure form. Allegedly, he rode here from the mainland in a boat without a bottom, so all the creatures of the sea could rise at night to converse with him. How disappointed he must have been with their chatter. Perhaps now, when all that haunts the ocean is the rubbish dumped from the tankers, he'd find more peace. They say he threw his arms wide in a valley on the south side and the cliff opened up to provide him shelter. They say he died of fever 116 years later. The shepherds left gifts for him at the mouth of the cave, but Donnelly records they never claimed to have seen him. I have visited the cave and I have left my gifts, but like them, I appear to be an unworthy subject of his solitude.
Aquí muy bonita la playa, los pasajes en este juego son brutales.
When you were born, your mother told me, a hush fell over the delivery room. A great red birthmark covered the left side of your face. No one knew what to say, so you cried to fill the vacuum. I always admired you for that you cried to fill whatever vacuum you found. I began to manufacture vacuums just to enable you to deploy your talent. The birthmark faded by the time you were 6 and had gone completely by the time we met, but your fascination with the empty and its cure remained.
Pronto viene más estreno al canal. Blaca, el juego Blaca, el nuevo de Blaca, sale el 15 de este mes.
Dear Esther, I found myself to be as featureless as this ocean, as shallow and unoccupied as this bay, a listless wreck without identification. My rocks are these bones, and a careful fence to keep the precipice at bay. Shot through me caves, my forehead a mount. This aerial will transmit into me so. All overexposed, the nervous system, where Donnelly's boots and yours and mine still trample. I will carry a torch for you. I will leave it at the foot of my headstone. You will need it for the tunnels that carry me under.
A wonderful sight. The moon cresting the junction between the cliff path and the stone circle. It cast a shadow of the ridge across the beach, all the world as if you had signed your name in untidy handwriting.
When someone had died or was dying, or was so ill they gave up what little hope they could sacrifice, they cut parallel lines into the cliff, exposing the white chalk beneath. You could see them from the mainland or the fishing boats, and know to send aid or impose a cordon of protection, and wait a generation until whatever pestilence stalked the cliff paths died along with its hosts. My lines are just for this. To keep any would-be rescuers at bay. The infection is not simply of the flesh. They were God-fearing people, those shepherds. There was no love in the relationship. Donnelly tells me that they had one Bible that was passed around in strict rotation. It was stolen by a visiting monk in 1776, 2 years before the island was abandoned altogether. In the interim, I wonder, did they assign chapter and verse to the stones and grasses, marking the geography with a superimposed significance that they could actually walk the Bible and inhabit its contradictions? Dear Esther, I met Paul. I made my own little pilgrimage. My Damascus, a small semi-detached on the outskirts of Wolverhampton. We drank coffee in his kitchen and tried to connect to one another. Although he knew I hadn't come in search of an apology, reason or retribution, he still spiraled in panic, thrown high and lucid by his own dented bonnet. Responsibility had made him old. Like us, he'd already passed beyond any conceivable boundary of life. I would leave you presents outside your retreat in this interim space between cliff and beach. I would leave you loaves and fishes, but the fish stocks have been depleted and I've run out of bread. I would row you back to your homeland in a bottomless boat, but I fear we would both be driven mad by the chatter of the sea creatures.
Una lata de pintura. Esto supongo que es como un árbol. No sé qué sacó, qué es esto aquí, qué quiere decir.
I dreamt I stood in the center of the sun, and the solar radiation cooked my heart from the inside. My teeth will curl and my fingernails fall off into my pockets like loose change. If I could stomach, I'd eat, but all I seem capable of is salt water. Were the livestock still here, I could turn feral and gorge. I'm as emaciated as a body on a slab, opened up for a premature source of death. I've rowed to this island in a heart without a bottom, all the bacteria of my gut rising up to sing to me.
Una Biblia. aquí supongo que llegará a algún lado o se cortará aquí. Vamos a ver. Bueno, así que ahí vamos a ver que estábamos ahorita. Te da toda esta vuelta para llegar aquí. Ya estamos llegando al final del primer capítulo. Aquí estamos llegando al final del primer capítulo. Si les gustó, déjame un buen like y será bueno para el canal y para mí también. Y seguiremos en el segundo capítulo a continuación.
Dear Esther, I have now driven the stretch of the M5 between Exeter and Bristol over 21 times. But although I have all the reports and all the witnesses, and have cross-referenced them within a millimetre using my ordnance survey maps, I simply cannot find the location. You'd think there would be marks to serve as some evidence. It's somewhere between the turn-off to Sanford and the welcome brake services. But although I can always see it in my rear-view mirror, I have as yet been unable to pull ashore.
Este juego dura como más o menos como 1 hora y media. Dura este juego. Antes de llegar a aquella antena que se ve allá. Tenemos que llegar allá. ¿Dónde?
All night the boy has kept me lucid. I sat, and I was at the very edge of despair, when I thought I would never unlock the secret of the island. I sat at the edge, and I watched the idiot boy blink through the night. He's mute, and he is retarded, and he has no thought in his metal head but to blink each way, then each minute aside, until the morning comes and renders him blind as well as deaf-mute. In many ways, we have much in common. There must be a hole in the bottom of the boat. How else could new hermits have arrived?
Pues,
I had kidney stones and you visited me in the hospital. After the operation, when I was still half submerged in anesthetic, your outline and your speech both blurred. Now my stones have grown into an island and made their escape, and you have been rendered opaque by the car of a drunk. When I first looked into the shaft, I swear I felt the stones in my stomach shift in recognition. I've begun my ascent on the windless slope of the western side. The setting sun was an inflamed eye squeezing shut against the light shone in by the doctors. My neck is aching through constantly craning my head up to track the light of the aerial. I must look downwards, follow the path under the island to a new beginning. The bothy was constructed originally in the early 1700s. By then, shepherding had formalized into a career.
fantasma.
The first
No
habitual
sé si lo
shepherd
están
was a
viendo
man
ahí.
called Jacobson, from a lineage of migratory
Vamos
Scandinavians.
acercando a la casa, se
He was
meten
not considered a man
adentro.
of breeding by the mainlanders. He came here every summer whilst building the bothy, hoping eventually that becoming a man of property would secure him a wife and a lineage. Donnelly records that it did not work. He caught some disease from his malcontented goats and died 2 years after completing it. There was no one to carve white lines into the cliff for him either. When the oil lamps ran out, I didn't pick up a torch, but used the moonlight to read about it. When I've pulled the last shreds of sense from it, I will throw Donnelly's book from the cliffs and perhaps myself with it. Maybe it will wash back up through the caves and erupt from the spring when the rain comes, making its return to the hermit's cave. Perhaps it will be back on the table when I wake. I think I may have thrown it into the sea several times before.
Este es el otro fantasma. 5 fantasmas.
Jakobsen's ribcage, they told Donnelly, was deformed, the result of some birth defect or perhaps a traumatic injury as a child. Brittle and overblown it was, and desperately light. Perhaps it was this that finally did for him, unable to contain the shattering of his heart. In half-light, his skeleton of discarded prop, a false and calcified seabird.
They found Jakobsen in early spring. The thaw had only just come. Even though he'd been dead nearly 7 months, his body had been frozen right down to the nerves and had not even begun to decompose. All around him, small flowers were reaching for the weak sun. The goats had adjusted happily to life without a shepherd and were grazing freely about the valley. Donnelly reports they hurled the body in fear and disgust down the shaft, but I cannot corroborate this story. Climbing down to the caves, I slipped and fell and have injured my leg. I think the femur is broken. It is clearly infected. The skin has turned a bright, tight pink, and the pain is crashing in on waves, winter tides against my shoreline, drowning out the ache of my stones. I struggled back to the bothy to rest, But it has become clear that there is only one way this is likely to end. The medical supplies I looted from the trawler have suddenly found their purpose. They will keep me lucid for my final ascent.
Rota. Libro. Página. Bien, hasta aquí llega el segundo capítulo. Si les gustó este juego, por favor, mándenme un like y nos vemos en el quinto capítulo. Adiós.
From here, this last time, I have understood there is no turning back. The torch is failing along with my resolve. I can hear the singing of the sea creatures from the passages above me, and they are promising the return of the gulls. It was as if someone had taken the car and shaken it like a cocktail. The glove compartment had been opened and emptied with the ashtrays on the boot. It made for a crumpled museum, a shattered exhibition.
Sí, lo más que me gusta de este juego son las cuevas. Es muy bonita, el agua es real. Tremendo.
I'm traversing my own death throes. The infection in my leg is an oil rig that dredges black muck up from deep inside my bones. I swallow fistfuls of diazepam and paracetamol to stay conscious. Pain flows through me like an underground sea. I will hold the hand you offered to me, from the summit down to this well, into the dark waters where the small flowers creep for the sun. Headlights are reflected in your retinas, moonlit in the shadow of the crematorium chimney.
Llega el último capítulo. El último capítulo. Aquí termina el quinto capítulo. Ahora vamos al final del otro capítulo. Si les gustó, pongan un like, que ayudará mucho el canal. Y ahora continuemos al final.
wish I could have known Donnelly in this place. We would have had so much to debate. Did he paint these stones or did I? Who left the pots in the hut by the jetty? Who formed the museum under the sea? Who fell silently to his death into the frozen waters? Who erected this godforsaken aerial in the first place? Did this whole island rise to the surface of my stomach, forcing the gulls to take flight?
I returned home with a pocket full of stolen ash. Half of it fell out of my coat and vanished into the car's upholstery. But the rest I carefully stowed away in a box I kept in a drawer by the side of my bed. It was never intended as a meaningful act, but over the years it became a kind of talisman. I'd sit still, quite still for hours, just holding the diminishing powder in my palm, noting its smoothness. In time, it would all be worn down into granules, washed into the sea and dispersed.
Rivera, Rivera.
All by the roadside, by the exit for Damascus, all ticking and cooled, all feathers and remorse, all of these signals routed like traffic through the circuit diagrams of our guts, those badly written boats torn bottomless in the swells, washing us forever ashore.
From here, I can see my armada. I collected all the letters I'd ever meant to send to you, if I'd have ever made it to the mainland, but had instead collected at the bottom of my rucksack, and I spread them out along the lost beach. Then I took each and every one, and I folded them into boats. I folded you into the creases, and then, as the sun was setting, I set the fleet to sail. Shattered into 21 pieces, I consigned you to the Atlantic. And I sat here until I'd watched all of you sink. Come back.
Te vaya a morir ahora. Nada aquí. Pero no se muere. Una maniobra. Estamos cerca de la antena. Este va a ser el último capítulo aquí. Estamos llegando ya al final del capítulo.
The pain in my leg sent me blind for a few minutes as I struggled up the cliff path. I swallowed another handful of painkillers, and now I feel almost lucid. The island around me has retreated to a hazed distance, whilst the moon appears to have descended into my palm to guide me. I can see a thick black line of infection reaching for my heart from the waistband of my trousers. Through the fugue, it's all the world like the path I have cut from the lowlands towards the aerial.
No saliese mal parada. La verdad es que el juego no era para nada malo y su premisa enfocada a la acción tampoco es que fuera un error. El problema radica en que jugarlo solo es muy aburrido por culpa de una inteligencia artificial aliada penosa, nada trabajada, que hace parecer a nuestros compañeros de equipo como simples maniquíes sin cabeza. Está claro que el juego es puro fanservice, pero lo cierto es que resultaba divertido acabar con oleadas de zombies sin tener que preocuparse demasiado por la munición.
I've begun my voyage in a paper boat without a bottom. I will fly to the moon in it. I've been folded along a crease in time, a weakness in the sheet of life. Now you've settled on the opposite side of the paper to me. I can see your traces in the ink that soaks through the fibre, the pulped vegetation. When we become waterlogged and the cage disintegrates, we will intermingle. When this paper aeroplane leaves the cliff edge and carves parallel vapor trails in the dark, we will come together.
Realmente era divertido, especialmente si lo jugábamos en cooperativo, pero no podíamos 4 fueron al menos dando un cambio progresivo hacia la acción, mientras que este Resident Evil 5 la acción es prácticamente la protagonista, dejando unos momentos bastante ridículos, como esa escena del combate final con Wesker en el volcán, donde Chris empuja una enorme piedra a base de puñetazos. Claro que sí, Capcom. En fin, se notaba que la franquicia estaba perdiendo el rumbo a pasos agigantados. En PlayStation 2, Capcom intentó con Resident Evil Outbreak dar el salto al multijugador cooperativo online en la franquicia. Eran los comienzos del juego online en consolas y la verdad es que no era del todo cómodo. Recordemos que había que utilizar un adaptador de Ethernet para PlayStation 2 que se vendía por separado y que era muy bárbaro.
If only Donnelly had experienced this, he would have realized he was his own shoreline, as am I. Just as I am becoming this island, so he became his syphilis, retreating into the burning synapses, the stones, the infection.
Aunque el salto de calidad era evidente, y a nivel jugable es donde se mostraban sus mayores diferencias. Ahora todos los supervivientes tenían un contador de infección que se reflejaba en una esquina de la pantalla y que nos ponía una contrarreloj sobre nuestras cabezas. Si ese contador de infección llegaba al 100%, nuestro personaje moriría y acabaría convertido en un zombie para luego atacar al resto del equipo. Porque sí, amigas y amigos, si un integrante del equipo moría, se convertía en zombie. El problema que tuvimos en Occidente con Outbreak es que no nos llegó el modo online, por lo que teníamos que jugarlo en solitario, rompiendo totalmente la experiencia de juego y llegándonos un producto que realmente estaba a medias. Por eso finalmente Capcom decidió sacar su secuela llamada Fight 2, con la cual ya trajo el modo online a Occidente, con el que todos aquellos que murieron en su momento disfrutaron de interminables horas por las que...
Returning to my car afterwards, hands still shaking, and a head split open by the impact. Goodbye to tearful aunts and traumatized uncles. Goodbye to the phenomenal. Goodbye to the tangible. Goodbye Wolverhampton. Goodbye Sanford. Goodbye Cromer. Goodbye Damascus. This cliff path is slippery in the dew. It is hard to climb with such an infection. I must carve out the bad flesh and sling it from the aerial. I must become infused with the very air. He was not drunk, Ester. He was not drunk at all. He had not drunk with Donnelly or spat Jakobsen back at the sea. He had not careered across the lost shores and terminal beaches of this nascent archipelago. He did not intend his bonnet to be crumpled like a spent tissue by the impact. His windscreen was not star-studded all over like a map of the heavens. His paintwork etched with circuit diagrams, strange fish to call the gulls away. The phosphorescence of the skid marks lighting the M5 all the way from Exeter to Damascus.
No sé si ven el fantasma ahí pegar de la cerca. El último fantasma es ese. Espero que lo vean.
Run out of places to climb. I will abandon this body and take to the air.
Dear Esther, I have burned the cliffs of Damascus. I have drunk deep of it. My heart is my leg and a black line etched on the paper all along this boat without a bottom. You are all the world like a nest to me. Eggs unbroken form like fossils, come together, send small black flowers to the air. From this infection, hope. From this island, flight. From this grief, love.
Bien, hasta aquí este gran juego llegamos a su final. Espero que les gustara. Si les gustó, pongan un like, que le hace bien al canal y a mí también, me ayudaría mucho. Enséñame cómo se hace. Estoy aquí para aprender. Pero mismo me gusta más historia.
Porque Resident Evil 3 comenzaba antes de que lo hiciera Resident Evil 2, pero terminaba después de la aventura de Leon y Claire. En esta entrega regresaba Jill Valentine, la cual se encontraba atrapada en una Raccoon City que nada tenía que ver con lo que había sido unos meses atrás. El virus T había llegado a la ciudad por culpa de las ratas y había provocado la infección de casi todos sus habitantes, convirtiendo a la ciudad en un cementerio. Metiéndonos en la piel de Jill, teníamos que escapar de la ciudad, pero claro, no iba a ser nada fácil porque a los zombies, perros y demás armas biológicas es